Dar, thanks for joining me on the Spirit Farm podcast.
Caleb, I'm so happy to be on. I'm so glad we got this time together.
I know. Thank you. We've been talking about it for a little while. We made it happen in these crazy, crazy times that we're living in. But grateful for you, your friendship, and your influence in the world. I can't wait to dig into it with you.
Well, I'm doing my small part in our big world.
I am impressed by you and how you operate, and in our limited time together, you're so full of joy and passion and energy, and you spread your expertise and your joy and your inspiration in a variety of different places. Mm-hmm. So I just want to lay a few of them out there, and then we can talk about the ones that you want to talk about. But you're an ambassador for Lululemon, which is cool.
Yes. And it's a definite great thing to be aligned with. I love them as a company.
Okay, good. So we can talk about that a little bit. You run, what's your role with Pay It Forward?
I'm the United States ambassador for Global Pay It Forward Day. So my role is to unite our country with 86 other countries and do as many acts of kindness as we can around the world and keep it moving. We have a day, but it's really all year. It's every day, trying to get people to understand just about how an act of kindness could change someone's whole life for the better in an instant. And every day, if we were kinder, the world would be a little better.
Okay. I think that's where we need to jump in. You're also a mindset coach, and you coach influencers and athletes and folks. We'll get to that next. But say a little bit more about the Pay It Forward. Did that start with the movie that we all watched with Kevin Spacey, and has it continued on since then?
Yep. So it actually started with the book, Catherine Ryan Hyde, and she'd written the book, which turned into the movie. Which the coolest thing, like this is a great lesson for all of us, is after the movie, there was a gentleman in Australia, Blake Beatty, who's one of my dear friends. Now he is. I didn't know him then, but he saw that movie and he said, what if, because in the movie, this little kid, obviously you saw it, but the teacher said, for those that didn't, the teacher asked the 6th grade students, what if you could make the world a better place? What would you do? How would you come up with a way? And this little boy comes and says, what if I helped 3 people who could then help 3 people who could then help 3 people? And we do things that they couldn't do for themselves. Imagine the ripple effect it would have. Yeah. I get chills still talking about this. And literally it caught on where it got attention with the news because these acts of kindness were happening. A guy literally gave someone his car. He's like, I don't need this, you could have this, you have it, you need it. And just all amazing acts. So this guy in Australia says, imagine if I could get Australia just to be a kinder country and we could do this where we just encouraged people. He started with, let's just pick a day where we just try to do these acts of kindness because once you do an act of kindness, especially for a stranger, someone that you don't know and they could never pay you back and you just serve, there is no better feeling. It is like for anyone feeling sad, you want to feel the best pill you could take. It's service to another human that you have no connection with and you just go and serve on top of obviously helping those you know. Yeah. So, and then obviously if you ever get that return and favor, when you get something done for you, it's an amazing feeling. Yeah. And so he did. He created this in Australia and then it caught attention and the news because it started to get so big and other countries started coming on board.
86.
And so now it's 86, but it grew and he had started, he had brought the United States on over time. And he had someone that was helping, but then couldn't, obviously with life and roles, had to kind of step down from it. So he had reached out of the blue. I really thought it was a joke and said, you've been identified as a world changer and we'd like to interview you for this role as ambassador for your country. I'm like, is this guy for real? Like, this has got to be spam or something, like something. I must be on like some show where I'm going to find out this is a joke. And he wasn't joking. And so, I interviewed and he asked me to be a part of it, but it's not just me. Like I might be the person who's talking about it, but it is everyone in our country who we get to unite together. And again, think about this. There's no money asked. There's no political sides. There's no bias in anything. We're just asking everyone in our country to come together. And those, by sparking a united front of people and getting people excited to go and serve, we've literally done around the world 20 million acts of kindness. And I say this as a lesson because when you think you can't do anything to help make the world better, you can. Yeah. How you show up and how you treat someone and how you serve literally could be the difference. And I think we just need people to remember that, because sometimes they feel we need to wait for global change or something to happen to make a difference. This is the people's movement. We are the movement. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it started with a grade school kid, right? I mean, and that movie, I cried through it. It was so impactful. Oh, yeah. They really captured it well. That was inspirational. It's true. I mean, and like you mentioned, I mean, people, there's the famous slogan, it's better to give than receive. And people will chalk that up to like a religious saying. No, it's just how we're wired. Like God wired humanity such that it actually feels better to give, to serve, to contribute, to do something for someone else without an agenda. It feels better. And if you're in the receiving business, that wears off. That doesn't last. That leaves you wanting. But so do you, I mean, is this like a paid position that you have?
No.
So no. You do it. No. You do it out of the kindness of your heart because you believe in it. You want to be a part of it and you want to keep fanning this flame.
Yes. And why also my mother, I mean, my family's very pay it forward, but my mother, we grew up with nothing. I mean, I think we've chalked on this. They still live in the 1,500 square foot house, and which, hey, that is very good. And, we were lucky enough to have a home, but we had very humble beginnings. Yeah. And my mom sometimes worked 3 jobs just so we could have food. And I would always see her giving from whatever she had. If she was hungry, but she knew someone else needed food, she'd give her own food. Mm. If we needed something, she was just so selfless and always, I mean, literally, she would tip the drive-through window of Dunkin' Donuts. And it was like, I mean, she was a barber, so she took what tips she got and she was giving them away. Wow. I just saw her all the time serving. So this is something that I've been doing. And what had happened is I'd been doing these free pay it forward speeches around the country because I wanted to lift people up. And I think that's what got the gentleman's attention, Blake. But all to say, this is volunteer, but how could I say no to trying to spread kindness around the world? Right. And then, some of my really good friends have come around. One of my best friends, Jessica, she runs Lumatory, but she's been co-leading it with me. And so there's a group of people, small group of just that we work it really hard, and then we get everyone to just join us. So it's a lot of work at times, but I don't know what other work, this is our mission, and it's serving people and it's doing kindness. So that's what we're here for.
Okay. So how would someone jump in on that? I mean, obviously they don't need to jump in on it formally, but if they wanted to, because anyone can just be kind and hopefully we are, but if they wanted to jump in and kind of connect to the movement, how would we do that?
Sure. Okay. So this is exciting. You could go right now to globalpayitforwardday.com. So globalpayitforwardday.com. You could get the information there. It'll take you. But come August, I'm going to have something that I could reveal that I can't reveal now. That's going to be something where acts of kindness will be connected around the world that you'll be able to see. And it'll be a platform that will take this to a whole nother level that people could join in on. So for now, go to globalpayitforwardday.com, check out what you can do, and just start, honestly, today. Just start with going to do an act of kindness. Stay tuned and stay connected with me too, because then you'll see come August how you could really get involved. All
right. Just to wrap this part of it up, tell us one pay it forward story, either that you've done recently or that someone that you've seen or heard of has done. Just something that we could relate to and kind of apply to our everyday life.
So one that just comes to, I usually pay it forward through a lot of mentoring I do, or this afternoon, there's someone that's child is in need of something. Mm. And so they called and they said, hey, would you mind helping out my daughter with something? Mm. So I'm in service with paying it forward and going to meet, especially our youth when I can. or doing calls like during COVID. And then honestly, all during this quarantine, I said, okay, God, things are very limited right now, but I could still serve. And so every Monday I just said, I'm going to get online and inspire people. And normally it would be that, I couldn't connect with people unless they came to a speech or a meeting. And I just said, how can I lift up people? So that was something I've been doing consistently. But one story that just comes to mind in my past, and then I'll share another one, was this is when we could fly. But I was walking through the airport. I was really tired. It was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I was hungry. But the only thing that was open was this Rocky Mountain Chocolate, I think, company.
I know it.
And they have those amazing candy-covered apples, those chocolate-covered Reese's, all that. And I was like, oh, my God, this is probably not the best thing to have at 11 a.m., but it's apple with a little chocolate. It'll be good. So I went and purchased it, and I was going to, walking out of the airport, and I saw this woman come up next to me, and she just looked really sad and like she had a really bad day. And I could just feel that it was not good for her. So I just looked at her and I said, ma'am, I don't know what is going on today for you, but I just feel like your heart is heavy. And I literally just bought this apple. I haven't even touched it, but I'd love for you to have it if it would help. She starts crying and she says, it's her young son. She's like, it's my son's birthday today. I work multiple jobs and I've not been able to get him a gift. Now I'm not going to go home empty handed. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I wanted to go back into the store and buy her 5 of them,
Right.
But you never know what someone's going through. So I would just say to people, be aware of how people are feeling and what's happening. Because you could see how you could, very kindly just step in and maybe offer something or do something or just give a word of encouragement. So just be aware. And it takes, and then someone did pay off someone's mortgage. That was like the big thing this year.
That's awesome.
A single mom that was really trying to, make things meet odds, their time and monies and finances meet. And it was really hard for them. So someone paid their mortgage.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I was just watching a video of some young guy who was he kind of put together a sequence of these little video clips where he cuts in front of somebody in the grocery line and they get frustrated because he just cut in front of them, understandably so, but then he buys all their groceries for them.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so they have this like offended, angry to, oh no, they're confused, and then they're just grateful, right? And so he's instead of just buying his drink or whatever, he's buying one or sometimes 2 or 3 people behind him all their groceries. That's cool.
That's really nice.
Well, thanks for sharing about that. That's just encouraging and inspiring. I'm grateful that you are waving that flag and on a global and national level, but then also just day to day in our community and with the people that have the privilege of encountering you. Okay, so you're also, you alluded to this in terms of your mentorship, but by vocation, you are a coach, and you particularly help people with their mindset. I want to get into some of the practical dynamics of what that looks like, what you're looking for, and if you're willing, maybe even like a current example without naming any names of something that you're helping someone kind of break through. But first, can you talk about your personal story and how this became a passion of yours?
Sure. So I am an occupational therapist, and so I went to become a therapist and started out in traumatic brain injury. So I was helping patients with traumatic brain injury and stroke, and I loved it because you were able to help people find, when they lost all hope, you were able to help find, at least come alongside them and find a new normal and hope for another day. And so you could imagine, if anyone is listening, that's ever had anyone that's gotten to a bad accident and had any sort of trauma, and it's extremely severe, you think, how am I going to go on? How is this going to work? And with really good people coming around and a good team, you're able to help. And so I would help people come from coma to a new normal. And so their mental, their cognitive, even spiritual. and just helping them reframe and re-see and shift their perspective, and then help them obviously with cognitive tools to help the brain. I had no idea that the basically foundation of everything I studied in neuro and the brain, and, you know, as the therapist, the type of therapist that I am today, how much I would need that. And then also the people that I work with today. And I say that because at 25, I had suffered my own stroke. I went to a chiropractor, and when I went to a chiropractor, they manipulated my neck and they ripped the artery to my brain, and I was left with a blood clot in my brain. So I had to do some adjusting in my life after that. And, you know, one of the things, Caleb, is, and I tell this often, when something like that happens, much like what happened with my patients that I was taking care of, when you get something where you could almost die and living with the blood clot where they're like, we can't remove it, but just you need to know that you have to, don't do this, don't do that, don't cough too hard, don't run too much anymore. And I was like, okay, I cannot live in fear of all these don'ts. I'll be cautious, but I just can't live in fear. But what it does is it actually takes fear kind of away from you in the sense of, if you could die any day, which we all can, but it's like someone just told you that, you're like, well, then let's go take on the world. So I naively was like, okay. So I was like, okay, I want to help run this hospital that I'm working at. Well, I was too young and I needed to go back to school for that, which I did. And then I ended up going back for business, and then coming out and helping run a few companies after that, which was great, and learning leadership and on a high level, and using the tools of human development to really develop great teams, people, and companies, and loved all of that. And then in 2008, though, when the companies went through a reorganization, I decided after I had gone through some challenging times, I decided I'm going to start my own practice. And this is in 2008 in the middle of recession, kind of what it feels like now. And I said, hey, people are literally, you know, they're starting to get really scared. Mentally, they're coming unglued a little bit, and they're starting to say, like, I don't think I could do this. And I'm saying, you might have lost your job. You might have, I know financially a lot was taken away from people. It was very scary. And it was the first time people started to feel that kind of effect for many. But to me, I said, if I could help people overcome the most extreme odds where they couldn't even walk, talk, they were in a coma, and they regained a new normal, we could regain it. So that's where it came to me, where I said, if I take science, psychology, leadership, and put it together with the work that I know as a therapist, I'm going to go after it and just get to people before it's too late and start helping them. And I did. I left everything that you could imagine, and started my own practice, and started speaking for free, and then coaching and going from there.
Let's dig into that a little bit, because I think that there are a lot of people that are figuring out, if not leaving their thing and starting something new, at least a side hustle, or how do I know if this is a passion I should pursue, or how do I know if this is the right time? So can you take us back there a little bit, and what was like the aha moment when you realized, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in, or I'm going to test some stuff on the side and see if it works. How did that journey look for you?
I think for me, it was where I honestly had seen so much of things not going well, and then where things were going in our country. And I honestly was naive, but so passionate to say, this is not how this is supposed to be. Like, we can be better as a country. We can be better in how we lead. We can be better in business. We can do things on a higher scale. And I started to come more into my faith at that time too. So I was getting more and more convicted by God about using my skill for the needs of others in a different way. So it was this conviction, but I would just say that it was almost like, for me, I burned the ships, and I just said, I'm going, like, I made the decision, I'm going all in, and I'm trying. And it wasn't that I had like all of this money saved, that there was this huge safety net, but almost like anything in my life, coming from having to work so hard for everything that I have is what's kept me almost with that hunger and also resilience of saying, like, I know how to work hard, and I know also how to put my heart into everything and let's just try it, because I can't imagine anything, even if the business per se doesn't work, you know that you've grown, you know, you've met people along the way, you've gotten knowledge that no one could take away. So if people are thinking about even now, should I start something? Should I leave something? You have to ask yourself, is this aligning with who you are, with what you want in your life, with the person that you want to become, with the gifts that God has given you? Does this align with you? If it doesn't align at all, you probably are at a point where you should be making a shift. Yeah. And where does your gifts, your talents, your passion, and your purpose all align to then go for something or align with another company or create something?
Yeah. That's great advice. And one of the ways that I think about it is that, you know, try to do the vision, try to be you, try to bring the fullness of what you can in the place that you are first, right? I mean, you might as well just try to bring it all to bear. And it may not be that you're in the wrong job. You may just be in the job wrong, right? So maybe showing up differently and trying new things and getting coaching yourself. And then there comes a time where you bring all of that and it either clicks and God gives you a vision for it, or there's a conviction that says, this isn't where I'm supposed to be, you know? And that's where you got to.
Great point.
And I love that you burned the ships and you went all in, and you weren't living in Phoenix, Scottsdale area at that time, right? So where were you and how did you move to the desert?
So I was back on the East Coast. My whole family lives in Connecticut and New York. And
we couldn't tell from the accent. We couldn't.
And it's Italian, so I think they make up their own words too. My mom definitely did. I went from the East Coast to then Nashville because I had ties to Nashville from a company that I was helping there. Okay. And I really felt God calling me there. And that's where I grew a lot deeper in my faith and I helped out at the church that I was at. It was a really big church. And for me, coming from Connecticut, I'd never experienced like these mega churches. I went to Nashville but I will say it was beautiful in the sense of I got to teach leadership and path and knowing about your ability. So it was in line with what I was already doing. So that was great. And then I just started helping people, coaching businesses and like I was doing, and just brought it to Nashville. But Nashville is where it really started to take off more. And then from there, I got asked to help. Actually, how I got out to Arizona was I went to a Tony Robbins event because one of his coaches had reached out and talked to me about being one of their coaches, Tony Robbins' coach. Yeah. And I was like, well, if I could do it from Nashville, because I want to just ride into the sunset here. I love Nashville. And they were like, sure, you could still do the work from there. So I went to a live event. There was a group of people that were sitting in front of me. And if anyone's gone to a Tony event, they're like 17 hours for multiple days. And you go. And so one of the first days we walk on fire at night. And so it's this whole practice. That's for another story. But the people that I walked on fire with happen to own a company out in Arizona that were just starting. And I didn't know them from a hole in the wall. And we just took a photo together. It was like, yeah, go team. And then the owner of the company out in Arizona had called me like 2 weeks later. And she's like, God's laid it on my heart that you're supposed to help me run my company. I'm like, lady, I don't even know you or what you do. Like, what do you mean? She's like, you help develop and grow teams and people. Like, that's what I was like, yes. And she's like, but I need you to move out here. I was like, no, I am not moving to the desert. Like, forget it. But, you know, God has other plans and, you know, we sometimes get a little stubborn. And for 6 months I consulted until she flew down for an event in Nashville that I had, a pay it forward night. I was speaking. And she said to me, just give me 1 year, pray on it. You could always come back. I was like, okay, I could do that. And I prayed to God, and I wanted to go on a missions trip. Prior to this, I had been praying about if it was right for me to go to a missions trip. And this is the first time when I prayed, I audibly heard, it is not about you, it's about the mission and the mission of the company, like growing it, because it grew to thousands and thousands of people. And really what he was trying to grow me to do, to use my gifts for him. And that's how I got out here and then helped that company, which led to then sports and people and coaching and all of that.
Okay. Couple of things before we get into all of that. I've had someone just recently ask me too. They're starting up a company and they wanted to begin with the end in mind and create the culture and develop people development right from the jump. And so they've asked me to do some, essentially it's life coaching for their team, for their staff and for their sales force and everything. And so I think that's a great way. That's something that I'm excited about. Fortunately, it's kind of a remote deal. So,
Good.
But the second thing is just say a little bit more about Tony Robbins, because I'm a fan. But it's a mixed bag. You've got
Sure.
I don't even know, like right now in this present moment, accusations and stuff. I haven't read. I don't know. Let's ignore that. But but just kind of philosophically, you're in the people development space. You have a faith. How do those things intersect? And how does that work with what you gain from Tony Robbins?
So I think like anything, when you say you're right. I think when someone gets to have as much influence as Tony, you're going to have people that will like or not like you. I mean, I think if people could just understand now, it's going to be no, not everyone even loved Jesus, and Jesus is the ultimate. Okay. So we should know
he was hated, reviled, tortured, and killed.
Yes. I mean, hello. So if someone tweets poorly of us on Twitter, you're going to be okay.
Right.
Okay. Right. There's your pep talk. So anyhow, going back to Tony, I really love Tony for, he cares. He really cares about shifting people's lives to lead a better life, to be empowered, to show up to be your fullest, to achieve things that you've been called to. And, yes, there's been all these things like sales and all that. Hey, it is a company for him, but that's how he makes his living. Yeah. And he has made a living through helping people. Yeah. So that's what companies do all the time. Yeah. He just happens to be a personal brand, right? Yeah. But in saying that, he does talk about, so for me, whether he talked about God or not, I do this with everyone. I pull from what I could learn and that will work for me to help someone. Yep. And if something doesn't align, I just say, okay, that might not align, but what does align and what can I lean in and learn from? Totally. And I like, even what's happening with the world, I feel like if everyone would just lean in a little bit more, we all have commonality.
That's right.
And even if you find someone trips up or there's something with integrity, I want us to try to remove the word hate, and that you're not going to say like, I hate them for this. Hey, everyone is human and they trip up. And even if they maybe are not on a good path right now, let's hope they could get help and, find ways to better, but try in your life to just worry about the things you can control and lean in and learn. So I've learned a lot from Tony, but I think honestly, he has such great resources and he is really smart. I mean, he really studies everything to its nth degree. Yeah. So when he says something, he's just not making it up. Right. It comes from backed research.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a kind of a prideful, judgmental, religious person in my earlier years and in my 20s. And I would criticize, or write off people like that if they didn't align. Right. And now I see how juvenile and immature that is, because anything that's true is God's, and we can grab truth from anywhere, and we should be. And recognizing that we're all the same and broken and screwed up, getting some stuff right and getting other stuff wrong. So I appreciate that about you. Thank you for that perspective. So now, so you're learning, you're gathering, you're applying occupational therapy. You've gone through some hard things. You've had the stroke. You find yourself in Arizona coaching for this company. But now you're also beginning to, did you part from the company, or did you start coaching on the side the whole time? And then what does that look like to dive into your coaching business?
Yeah. So I had already been coaching when I was in Nashville, obviously, when they found me. Yeah. And she said that I could keep my coaching and run the business. Yeah. So I had both going the whole time, which I will say in full disclosure, I've had 3 strokes now, but my second stroke came after 3 years of trying to do that, running both. And so I was doing both, coaching and running the company. And I coach people of all different sectors, from sports to executives to entrepreneurs. And still kept my hand obviously in coaching, but now I was coaching in this company. I was essentially coaching our company, which had 70,000 people. So around the country.
70,000?
At one point. Yeah, because it was independent consultants. So you're trying to motivate a volunteer staff of people, that are selling your product. Yeah. But all to say is I had done that, recovered from my stroke. And that was more of a mild one, that second one, which was good, but it was my warning sign. My neurologist was like, you need to stop now. And I was like, give me one more year so I could like slowly do what I need to. And that's what I did, which I know I shouldn't probably have done it for another year, but I did. And that allowed me then to make the transition that I wanted to. And then I could go back full time, like I was focused on my coaching practice. And over time, I became the Phoenix Suns mental conditioning coach, and I coach independent individual athletes in all leagues. So not just basketball, but baseball, hockey, football. And
how did that happen, Dar? How did you break into the professional sports scene? Was it just like one person that passed, that mentioned your name to another person? What did that look like?
Yes. Yeah. And I started in Nashville before I come out. And what happens is sometimes privately athletes will reach out, and especially back then, I was doing mental conditioning and mental fitness coaching before it was a fad. So you could imagine trying to help people on their mental health and even their mental edge before coaching was as big as it is now. Right. So it was, and it's still where people, don't fully disclose that they might be, using coaching for this, but back then for sure. So people would privately come to me, and it could be something as, hey, I have to do so much more public speaking as an athlete, and I am scared, really scared, and it's hard. Can you help me with that? Or this is what's going on in my life, and I'm not sure who to talk to. Yeah. Could you help me? Yeah. And that's how it started to grow. And then it grew. It really is word of mouth. I think it's God, because I am a female in a male-driven sports world, and that has its own challenges. But all to say, God brought me there, so I'm completely confident in sharing and being there. But God needed to open the door. I couldn't break open the door. He needed to open it. And honestly, I wasn't even looking to. This was not something I was like, I'm going to go coach in this space. It was what God called me to, which is why all the more reason I knew I was literally walking into it. And then one of the owners of the teams had reached out and asked me to be a part, and then it grew from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So can you give us an example of when someone reaches out to you, they say, hey, Coach Dar, so-and-so told me about you. I need some help. What are they usually calling for? And then what do you do with them? How do you start? Kind of how do you try to move them in the direction? What does that look like? Don't give us all your secrets and tricks, but just give us a glimpse into kind of how the conversation gets going and what you want for them.
So honestly, a consistent theme, no matter whether it's sports or business, when everyone comes to me, it's actually to help them with more confidence. And I think so many people have what we know as imposter syndrome. They start to get to this point where usually the people I work with are at the top. And so they're at the top. 1, it gets lonely. 2, they have no outlet. 3, they start to have imposter syndrome. Things might be going well on the surface, but there's this self-doubt. And there is this, what if I'm not as good as everyone thinks I am? What if I start to have a slump? What if I'm in a slump? What if something doesn't go right in this company? How do I carry all this pressure, especially if you're the top guy on your team or woman in your company? So that pressure is usually where they're going, I probably could use, someone like Dar, where I help them on their mental health and space to create clarity for them. I help them for sure on their confidence. And being a therapist, and I would say, especially at these high levels, we have to make sure people are fully educated when they take certain people on to help them, and that we don't want to do a disservice. So I help them both on their mental health, leadership. I might be helping them on, now they get this elevated role. Do they know how to lead at that role? Because for every level you go up requires a new mindset for that, because there's new responsibilities, pressures. and help them with the loneliness factor. Because as people probably have seen on The Last Dance, you saw Michael Jordan. He was mostly in a room and was with his security guards because it was constantly pressure all around him. So it's helping. I would say like that's usually a thing. So they might say, "Hey, I need work on my mental edge." I'm like, "Okay," I'm going to be taking over this company, and I want to make sure I'm really sharp. And both are true, but there is some more stuff underneath that we'll get to that we'll work on.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, how would you coach someone who's listening and is struggling a little bit with just their own confidence, their own sense of self-esteem? They might not be in as high a profile of a position, but maybe the recent events in our culture or financial setbacks or whatever has them a little bit rattled. Is there something that you would say?
Yes, because I'll just speak for what works for me, because I'm just like any of you listening right now. And what really worked for me and what I try to help anyone with is I'll first say don't forget what you've been gifted in. You absolutely have some gift that has been given that no one else has. And if you could remember what that gift is, even right now, you might have to pivot how you deliver it. So for example, if one of my avenues is I do a lot of speaking, I may not be flying to go speak now, but I just pivot and now it's virtual. Or coaching looks a little bit different. Or if you've lost some business, how could you take your gift and maybe you're going to start something new, but your gift is going to be part of that new startup or doing something different. And even if you've had to downsize, remember where your worth comes from. It comes from you being aligned in Christ. And if those that aren't listening and maybe faith is not a part of yours, I would just ask you to explore it. I can never, ever tell you what faith that is right for you. I just know what works for me, but I would just say something, knowing you're aligned to something bigger and that you're here for a reason, it starts to give you that confidence. And then you start to have this belief of, okay, find someone that could help you with this too. Identify what your giftingness is. And then maybe what's an outlet in a way you could start to share it. And when I stay in what I know I'm gifted in, I have a God confidence. I feel very comfortable walking in any room with anyone. You could put me anywhere and I will feel comfortable because I'm only going to bring what I know. The moment I would ever try to shift in saying, if I ever would go to anything that I don't know, that's where I've now moved out of my confidence. So I know that. Don't talk to me about numbers. I'm not good at them. I'm not going to be running your financial department.
Someone asks you to lean into a question on quantum physics.
I want to listen and learn, but then I'm probably not going to be a researcher on it.
Yeah.
So I stay in my lane because one, that keeps me full of my joy because I'm aligning with what God's called me to. And I really think about this. We're not here to just be getters of the world. That's not a word, but we're not here to just take everything in this world. We're here actually because God called us to say, you are only here for a certain amount of time. We don't know. It could be 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 90, but when he calls us out, we're done. But we are here for a mission. So in your mission right now, what is it that you have to work on? What does the world need that you could actually step up and fill that need? So where does your God-given gifts meet the world's needs? That is where you start to find your confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great word. And I've lived that too. I had confidence rattled and through numerous times in my life. But even a couple of years ago with a political thing that went sideways and crazy and having to leave an organization that I had led and built. And while that's painful and real and hard and there was an injustice there, I still at the end of the day came back to, well, I'm just going to keep being me. And so I'm going to keep encouraging people. I'm going to keep speaking. I'm going to keep writing. Let's just find a new outlet to do it. Right. And so, and then it takes some time to develop. And sometimes there's a dip before there's a growth curve again. But that's all part of it. And it's all part of the building of character. It's not supposed to be up and to the right all the time. It's not supposed to be a straight line all the time.
No. Straight line's flat means we've lost life if it's a straight line.
Yeah.
We don't want a flatline.
We don't want a flatline. We don't
Keep
want
that heartbeat.
That's
Take
it.
the ups and the downs. That's life.
That's real life.
Living.
That's living.
Yes. Yeah.
Dar, so
there's a lot I could say on confidence, but just start there.
I believe it. Okay, so what are you excited about now? As we're kind of coming toward the second half of 2020, knowing that the first half was a doozy. What's getting you up in the morning? What's lighting you on fire? Is there anything that's out in front that you're excited about, or do you just have a daily routine that keeps you pumped and motivated and focused?
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like I have to answer that in two different ways. The first one is my daily routine absolutely keeps me centered and did keep me centered through COVID. So as far as I get up in the morning, I do some meditation, some prayer time, and then I do movement. So meditation and movement is the start of my day. And when we were in COVID and in my place, and I have an autoimmune, so I had to be extra careful. And plus I've had strokes. So it was like, I was not even going to the grocery store. I was Instacarting things because I didn't want to get anything. But so I'd get up, and my trainer that I go to work out did a small group. So they did some outside where people were really spaced out outside, but I couldn't go outside. And so I did it through my Zoom to keep me going. And I will say that meaning that even in the middle of COVID, I still tried to find a way to keep myself accountable. Now, I didn't need that, but it was a husband and wife, they keep me held accountable because I may even do this, but I still need a coach, right? I still need to be held accountable. Yep. So keeping that morning routine really keeps me so that I'm fueled. I'm fueled by my meditation. I'm fueled when I pray and understanding what, I'm called to by my vision and my mission. And then I move so that I get myself physically ready. If I don't do those things, I definitely would have a harder time showing up. Yeah. So and then I served the whole time during COVID, paying it forward, getting online, sharing messages, because it gave me purpose too. When I got up every day, I was like, well, I'm technically not going anywhere to work, but I'll just get online and I'll keep doing what I do. And I think that helped me, it helped others, but it kept me in a flow and it was serving a purpose. So that's what I have done during COVID and what I continue to do. Now I'm starting to get outside and just going to actually do the workout is like a limitless pill. Like I was like, oh my gosh, there's some people, like it's only 6 people in a big space, but we're spread out, but I still could see humans. I'm an introvert extrovert. Yeah. So I refuel internally, but I then need connection, and then I come back and I refuel introvert, and then I go back out and be an extrovert. Yeah. And then what excites me about the rest of 2020 is I've said this even during COVID, and even honestly what we're going through with all of just the racial injustice, but it's waking us up. And I am excited about it's waking us up for how we take care of our health, for how we are seeing how we interact with the world. It's waking up our healthcare system, which I've been trying to fix healthcare for a long time. It's waking up even people just with all that's going on with equality and race, and just saying like, hey, how could we listen and learn and love each other more? Maybe where have we not been leaning in? Where are things, how can we make things better? And that's why I've always been about trying to get people to come to the middle to have the discussion versus hate and being so polarizing. Because even from the race standpoint, obviously my friends are Black. I work in sports. I'm around it. We have these talks all the time. So it's constant conversation for us. But just even having people lean in to say, hey, if you don't know, then just ask, but lean in, don't hate, don't make a blanket statement on all things. And by the way, if you're upset with the police, how can we make sure that our police get even better training? And what could we do? And so I just keep I look at solutions. So I hope for 2020, this next part, we could all come together using our gifts to create the solutions of the challenges that we just saw so that we don't have to repeat this. Or, I know things are never completely wiped out. Like the virus will not be wiped out, even how people show up. But I will say to everyone, could we all say to ourselves today that we're going to do our best to be our best version so that we could start to be the change that we want to see. And I don't mean that as like this fluff statement.
Yeah.
What I have to look at myself every day and say, Dar, what could you do to do better today?
Yeah.
And so I'm excited, and things are starting to pick up. So even just clients and working with companies and sports. And so for me, I've shifted in some ways on how I'm doing things, and just engaging in other ways. So I feel like this could be where we start to find solutions to help.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that too. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful
Mm-hmm.
to you for being one of those helpers. You are a joy. You are a bright light in this crazy world. In my limited time knowing you, you're just an encourager and an inspiration to everyone that you encounter. So I know that you're doing your work in the morning, because when you show up on a Zoom call or on the phone or with somebody, you bring life and joy and encouragement.
Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks for being that. Thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your day today to encourage the Spirit Farm community. I'm grateful for that, and I look forward the next time I get to hang out with you.
Yeah, I can't wait. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.